Join us, Millie, Junty, and our kids as we find the extraordinary wonder in our ordinary lives. Welcome to Wonderlust.
Its wings.
This is the National Museum of Singapore. We haven't been here before and I can't believe I didn't really know about it. It's surrounded by the university, which is pretty cool. We came up near one of the MRT stations, Bras Basar, and underneath there is a place where you can get food. There's discounted rates for students, but the food is really good and the price is amazing. So we've had a quick lunch and now we're going to head into the museum.
We've just paid for our tickets. There was an option to do a sort of a non-permanent gallery, but it was all on the fall of Singapore, which I've done a lot of research on lately. We've been to a couple of museums. If you're not sure what happened at the fall of Singapore, check out our video here. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to explore the permanent galleries that are here and see what they can tell us about Singapore.
I love the artwork by Yip Yu Chong. He's got loads of famous artworks all over Singapore and in Chinatown as well. I did a walking tour which was great, and here they've brought them to life. So they've got like a rolling screen that has lots of images from his paintings, which are all parts of history throughout Singapore, some personal history as well. And lots of the animation is just bringing the pictures to life, which is really great. You get more of a sense of how it would have actually been. You know, you can see the pictures and kind of imagine, but this gives you like a real life step into the past, which is just great.
What I didn't realise was how kind of Gatsby-like the 1920s here in Singapore was, and even down to what some of the people wore. I saw there's a woolen suit with long tails that the men used to wear, and I just think, how hot must they have been? I'm in shorts and t-shirt today and a pair of Crocs, but and I felt warm walking outside. They would be so focused on making sure they looked prim and proper that they were wearing long tails, woolen blazers. Absolutely crazy. It must have been boiling.
I found an old mahjong set that they used to play with. This is a set if when you win it, or it could be like different sets to win.
This particular room has loads of artifacts to do with the colonial era, and in particular it's talking about women and how between the 20s and 30s their roles changed from becoming more independent, I guess. There was a big push for women to be educated, which before lots of women stayed at home and tended the house, didn't often leave the home. They kind of stayed at home, and then when they were married they would then leave the home to then set up their own home with their husbands. But this is interesting because it's showing you two different types about women that kind of, once they were at school, they realised that there's lots more to life. There's more like dances and things they can go to. There's mahjong sets here, and talking about women going out more and I guess enjoying life and having a bit more of a balance, I guess, like we do now, kind of things at home and going out. So it's really interesting to take a step back into the past.
Just spotted that these chandelier lights that we spotted a bit earlier are now swinging, which is pretty cool. They look fun. The kids were mesmerised by it.
They look like angels.
The next section we're going into is called Surviving Shonin. Shonin is the name that was given to Singapore by the Japanese during the Japanese occupation. It's been 80 years, almost to the day, since that whole time happened. So it'd be interesting to see what else I can find here, because I found out a lot recently, also to do with my grandfather's experiences of the Japanese occupation, particularly with Suk Ching, which is the ethnic cleansing that happened in the Japanese first 3 or 4 days while they were here in Singapore. But let's go in and let's have a little look. our propaganda had a huge part to play in the fall of Singapore, in the way that Japanese tried to change the narrative. And I don't know, I find it funny. It's kind of, it feels so foreign and so distant, yet you think about what's happening now in the Ukraine and Russia and how the narrative is trying to be rewritten to be able to justify actions and that sort of thing. And you just think, have we not learned humanity? Have we not learned just to get it right from here on in? And obviously not, I guess human greed and whatever is always a factor in our existence, but I find it really fascinating how the narrative, that they attempted to change the narrative. What I thought was really interesting in there was that a couple of local kids were saying to their parents how dirty the walls looked in there. And for us from the UK, we've got a really clear idea of what ruins look like, I guess, but they had absolutely no idea. They just thought the walls were dirty, and the mum kind of had to explain that they were models of broken walls from wars and things like that. And it was just a really weird revelation, because you're right, like they're so right. When you walk around Singapore, everything's so clean. Everything is, I mean, it's a very new country, so you don't have that depth of history. Even now we're in a museum and it's documenting old stuff in Singapore, but it's no more than 100 years old. And in the UK we'd be looking at things from the medieval times, and so it's really strange.
We go and visit ruins. We had this place near our house the kids would just go and climb. So they kind of understood, old buildings, how old buildings were made, like massive chunks of rock, and really different.
Really bizarre.
Interesting.
Anyway, we are done with this section, and there's a new section downstairs that we're going to head towards now.
This little section here is talking all about climate change, specifically for like rivers, mangroves and the sea in all different parts of the world, just talking about the fact that things need to be changed. There's one here that's quite interesting. It says, there we've got all the science, but unless we get to the root of the problem, like the way we live and shop and our waste usage, that things aren't really going to change, which is something that I find really fascinating. So it's interesting to see different parts of the world, and it showcases different people that are all trying to do something to bring awareness to climate change. I find it slightly ironic that the pioneer of pediatrics in Singapore is smoking a massive cigar. Just made me laugh. This wall is full of awesome women of Singapore that have done loads of different things, including being the first woman to do something like, in particular, like there's netball, for example. There's lots of different people who have started up education and things like that, which is really awesome for the kids to kind of have a look at as well, and realise that things aren't always like how they are now, that it's taken a long time to kind of get things to the world that we have today.
I find it amazing how in the 1960s only were women beginning to pick up a bit more prominence in life in Singapore. For example, 1 in 3 women were able to receive an education in 1960, where 3 in 10 women were literate and 1 in 5 had a job. Now I think of my mum in the 1970s, who was working as the only female in a very male-dominated area of work, which was in the financial market, and which was incredible, really. And she talks about how she managed to hold her own, and how the men had a very different sort of style of banter to what she was used to. But she managed to hold her own really well, and she stayed in that role for a really, really long time. I think my mum should be on this wall here.
Singapore is famous for being an import and export port for boats and trading spices and things, and there's a huge boat in here, which is pretty awesome. And then you go around lots of different sections. It kind of gives you the history on how things have changed over time, with kind of different people coming into Singapore and changing things and bringing different ingredients, and people kind of mixing and mingling with each other, and how it's been developed over the years, which is really interesting. There's lots of things to read, which is great. And if you are Singaporean or have PR here, you can actually get in for free, which I think is brilliant, just to come and spend an afternoon in here. It's nice and cool, so it's great if you want to get out of the heat, or if it's chucking it down with rain, as it has been quite a bit lately, and just take some time to really read all of the little things here. enjoying this section. They've got different sounds as you walk around to kind of give you an immersive experience about what Singapore used to be like. I think I was looking at a video with Milo and Aspen, and I don't think they realised that's what Singapore used to look like, because it's so very different to what it looks like now that you kind of can't believe that Singapore used to look like that. So I think it's great that we can be really immersed in different history, different types of jobs, and the different people that would live here that have made a big part of how Singapore is now, and it just keeps on changing and changing. This section has got a little bit more information about the Japanese occupation, and behind me is a replica tank, and it was one of the tanks that was actually used in a mini-series that had Tom Hanks in called the Pacific. And again, there's lots of music kind of getting you into like the really feeling. There's kind of gunshots you can hear, and it's quite eerie in here really when you kind of think about the photos that you're looking at, that they were real people that this had happened to. So yeah, it's really eye-opening in here. We've moved on from during the Japanese occupation to afterwards now. What's interesting in here is there's a $10,000 bill, which oh man, could you imagine going to pay for a copy for $1? Oh, here you go, $10,000, sorry. This little section has got some lovely decor. There's lots of orange going on. This is talking about Singapore's HDB, the Housing Development Board, where lots of the high-rises were then built. They're still HDBs now. If you didn't know what they were, they're flats, apartments. And so this little section is talking about the first ones that were built, and saying that lots of people had to adjust to living from kampongs, where sometimes it would be wooden huts, you get the water out of the well, chickens running around, to then living in a house, essentially. So it's, yeah, really interesting. I love little snippets of history, looking at the fashions. Kind of glad the orange kitchens didn't hang around because they're not particularly attractive.
Honestly, I could have spent hours in there just wandering around, taking everything in. There's so much there about Singapore's history, stuff that I knew already, but stuff that I didn't know, more detail of things that I didn't know as well, and so beautifully laid out. I've loved it. It's been a great afternoon.
Yeah, I enjoyed kind of the bit at the end that kind of post, I guess, the Japanese occupation. That bit was interesting as well. I really enjoyed that bit.
Yeah, like you think about what's happened since the war, but actually there's been such a huge development here. I think just to be able to experience it and to be able to see all the different things that have happened here, the things that are really intentional to be able to create this beautiful country that we live in is amazing. A lot of forethought and planning that has gone into it. We actually cut our day short a little bit because the kids, it's probably aimed a little bit older than the kids. There's a couple of school groups going around of teenagers.
Yeah.
Our kids are, as you know, like 8 and 6, so I think they're finding some of the information quite hard to digest. So we've cut our day short a little bit, but we still managed to take lots in. It's probably just worth bearing in mind if you've got kids and you want to have a wander around, but they did find some of it really enjoyable, and our kids fortunately are used to being dragged around places, so it's worked out okay.
Children 6 and under are actually free to get in, which is great, and then as I mentioned, if you're PR or Singaporean, it is free to get in as well. So I would say it's definitely worth coming here. It is, as you said, one of the most comprehensive museums that we've been to, but not quite as hands-on. Still a brilliant place to come to. There's a couple of weddings happening here today, so it's been quite nice to kind of see the photographs.
Place.
Yeah, amazing. They're just kind of behind us now, actually. But yeah, really nice place to come for some Instagram photos as well. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.